Hey everybody, Dr. Jaime here, and you are about to listen to the Dr. Jaime Show audio experience. I hope you enjoy the tips and advice in this segment.
Hey everyone, Dr. Jaime here with the Dr. Jaime Show audio experience. And today I have with me returning guest Sarah McDugal, abuse recovery coach and author of One Face, sarahmcdougal.com. And today she's going to chat with us about 6 ways to know if someone is sorry versus sorry they got caught. Sarah, welcome back to the Dr. Jaime Show.
Thank you, Dr. Jaime. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you and talk. I'm glad to be here.
Yay! Yeah, we are going to have a good time. So I think this is a question so many people want to know. Is this woman or man sorry, or are they just sorry that they got caught? So can you share with us some of the ways that we know whether they're truly sorry or not?
Absolutely. And I just want to start by saying, I work with women who have been in abusive situations. So a lot of my terms are sometimes I'll just be like, if he's sorry, but that does not mean this doesn't work for men or women who are in an abusive situation. So if I use that language, that does not mean I think all abusers are male. I just want to put that right out there. But, anybody that is in an abusive relationship, whether that is a marriage or a dating relationship or even like a really toxic work relationship or someone with an abusive parent or even an abusive friend, I mean, when you get hurt, and you realize someone's been doing hurtful things or abusive things over and over and over again, and then they say sorry and it gets a little better, you're left wondering, are they going to keep their promises this time? And so and that's a heartbreaking question to keep asking in any kind of relationship. Is this the time that they're going to keep their promises? And so here are 6 ways to know if it's very likely that change is going to last or if it's just another cycle in that whole love bombing and then sliding into tension and then abusive situation and then saying sorry and coming back out of it but never changing. So here are 6 ways to recognize manipulative promises.
Okay.
Here's number 1. If the change is short-lived and then it just slides right back to normal.
Okay.
Number 2, if when they're caught, they lie or they only tell part of the truth until they get caught with more evidence and then they admit that truth and then they get caught with more evidence and then they admit that truth instead of just telling the whole truth.
It's almost like an omission. It's almost like an omission for a while.
Yes, they only admit to the truth you have evidence for when you confront them, and they don't, and they keep lying and saying there's nothing else, and then you show them there's something else, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, there was that too, and then you say, well, what about the evidence of this over here? And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess there was that too, and they keep lying and saying that they're not guilty until you confront them with evidence.
Okay.
So that's number 2. Number 3, if And let's say we're talking about like an addictive situation where you're dealing with someone who's addicted to something or someone who's been cheating on you or just a lot of deception in that. But especially in an addictive situation when you've set accountability things or counselors have said, okay, if you're addicted to XYZ, then you need to make sure that you don't go to certain types of places where you'd be exposed to that addiction, or you need to have certain accountability structures to make sure that you're not tempted and part of recovery. So if the other person resists giving up their freedoms that have been kind of curtailed by the recovery process, or they try to get out of the agreement, or later they minimize what they agreed to when it's time to act on that agreement, that's manipulative change. So that's number 3. Number 4.
Excellent.
If they accuse you of being controlling or out to get them or out to punish them when you're insisting that they stay accountable.
Okay.
It's
almost like they're turning the tables on you.
Exactly. So instead of saying, hey, these are the consequences of the choices I made. This is the behavior that I did. This is what I'm struggling with addiction or something, whatever those things are. And when you say, hey, you promised not to do that, they're like, you're so controlling. That is manipulative change. Number 5 is part of this. If they blame other people or other things or other circumstances instead of saying, I take responsibility, I made that choice.
I think we could all learn from that one.
We could, and that is one that we all, it doesn't matter if you've never been addicted to anything in your life, all our relationships would be better if we just individually took direct responsibility for the times when we have done something.
Yeah.
Instead of blaming people.
Well, even goals, even like our regular goals. People might say, I can't go work out today because it's too cold outside, or I worked too late today. Like if your New Year's resolution, right, at the start of the year, is to do that, if you're finding excuses and blaming other things, it's taking away your control from you being able to change the situation. It's always, it stinks to take responsibility for stuff because it kind of puts it on us but at the same time, it's great when we can take responsibility because we have the control then to change the situation.
Exactly, and you're taking back that control for yourself.
Yep.
And so the flip side of this, and I don't want to get completely sidetracked from our list of things here, our 6 things, but we're still on number 5. But the flip side of this is that if you are being abused by someone and you realize that they keep blaming you, this is where you can set a healthy boundary and say, no, that's not my fault. I didn't make that choice for you. You made that choice. I'm responsible for my choices, but you're responsible for your choices. So even if it's something simple like I didn't go out and work out because it's so cold outside, it's not I can't go work out, it's cold outside. It's cold outside and I decided not to go work out. But it's still my choice. I made that choice, which I totally
Excellent.
But that's
yes, I love it.
Because it's cold today. But
it is cold outside today. I did use that excuse. So.
Oh, man. I totally take responsibility that I chose not to go out and work out this morning. Number six, if, especially in dealing with addiction, and addiction is very often closely tied to abusive patterns. They're not always together, but if there is addiction, there will be abusive patterns. There can be abuse without addiction, but not usually the other way around. So the 6th one, if addictive patterns go underground and sideways, like they've been really addicted to one type of thing, and they're working on that, but then they end up refocusing on another type of activity, and that consumes all their attention in an addictive way instead of living in stable, healthy, non-addictive patterns, then the odds are that the original addiction may come back. And it's a manipulative change because they're still living an addictive lack of responsibility kind of lifestyle. They're not addressing the root of addiction in your relationship and in their own choices. They're just changing the face of the addiction. So any of those 6 things.
Yeah, replacing one for another.
Exactly.
Okay.
Any of those 6 things are red flags that the change that is going on is not, they're just sorry they got caught. But I want to end this on a positive note. So I want to give 6 quick signs that change is genuine. These are reasons for hope. If you've been or are in a situation where someone is sorry and you're trying to figure out if they're sorry they got caught, if you see these, especially multiple ones of these, not just one, you have a lot of reason to hope. So here, number 1, if they're willing to be transparent and vulnerable, if they're willing to answer any question, no matter how hard it is for you to hear, and they don't lie in the process.
Okay.
Number 1. Number 2, if they're willing to submit to accountability outside of you and willing to let you match stories with those accountability partners so they're not playing 2 people against each other or deceiving you or them.
Okay.
So again, about transparency. Number 3, and this is especially, again, for someone who may be dealing with an addiction, whether it's a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, or even a sexual addiction. If they're willing to give up access to the portals of addiction. So that may mean if they're dealing with alcohol addiction, they don't go where people are drinking anymore until they're in a better place in their recovery and they can handle that. If they're dealing with a pornography addiction or a sexual addiction, they might get a flip phone instead of a smartphone. They might give up their tablets, put filters on the internet, hand over passwords to someone that is designated a counselor or an accountability partner, that kind of thing. And they're willing to do that to help themselves make better choices because they know that when their addict is active instead of themselves, they're not going to be able to make good choices. This number 4, along the same lines, if they're willing to be humble and account for their time and money and activities without accusing you of being controlling or paranoid or cramping their freedom. And again, this is dealing with someone who's abusive because of an addiction. So they're willing, it all comes back to transparency. If they're also willing to be accountable about secondary addictions. A lot of times people who have one primary addiction, they also have power and control obsessions that can they can kind of manifest in other ways. Like a lot of sex addicts also have addictions with like lethal weapons, swords, knives, guns, bows. Now that doesn't mean that everybody who loves to carry a gun is a sex addict. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just saying
that
sex addiction is about power, not sex. And so when someone has an addiction related to power, it often has other secondary types of things where that manifests. And so if they're not willing to give up those secondary things, if they are willing to give up those secondary things as well and to have some accountability limits on those for their own health and for your safety, that's a good sign of hope. And number 6, if the person is willing to recognize and freely admit that their choices have earned these limitations and their restrictions, and that they are willing to cooperate with counselors, therapists, accountability partners, and you as the caring person in their life until you and the professionals realize that trust is rebuilt, not that person just deciding, well, I've been good for 2 weeks, you should trust me now. But if they're willing to just submit to that process of gradually rebuilding trust and letting that come in stages and taking that responsibility, that is a huge reason for hope and a sign that change is very genuine and they're truly sorry, not just sorry they got.
Sarah, these are so great. Thank you so much for sharing these tips. I think everyone always wants to know, is he or she sorry, or are they just sorry that they got caught? And now we can tell whether their change is manipulative and not truthful, or if it is genuine and hopeful. So, Sarah, thank you again for being on the Dr. Jaime Show.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the next time.
Everyone, you are listening to the Dr. Jaime Show audio experience with Sarah McDugal, abuse recovery coach and author of One Face, sarahmcdougall.com. Do me a favor. Go to YouTube, iTunes, Google Play. Subscribe to the Dr. Jaime Show. Every like, every follow helps the show continue to grow. And go ahead and comment below with your biggest takeaway from this particular episode. Have a great day, and remember to be genuine and being sorry and look for those manipulative signs.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dr. Jaime Show audio experience. I really hope that you enjoyed the tips and advice given on today's segment. Do me a favor and go to iTunes and my YouTube, and please subscribe to that channel. Every subscribe, every like, every follow helps the Dr. Jaime Show grow so that we can bring you the best guests and the best content possible. And of course, as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to leave that as well. Talk to you soon.